also how they're going to use that in their lives, that it catches fire in them. And to see that spark happening is very exciting for me as an educator. That applied learning using real-world experiences is very critical for me. And I inform that with my extension experience. So when we're talking about volunteers and program model, we also talk about the problems that you can have and how to deal with those, or the best way to prepare volunteers for their volunteer experience, or working with those community agencies. Those type of things are always informed by real-world experience. I always use a logic approach, logic model approach to whether I'm teaching, whether I'm doing curriculum development, or I'm doing program development. And I use Wiggins and McTigge's Understanding by Design. They have a backwards design approach to curriculum development and program development, and they always start with where you want to wind up. What is the long-term goal or outcome that we are searching to achieve? This may be down the road. Hopefully this is tied to one of our state program initiatives or department initiatives. And then from this big picture goal, then we start developing our evaluation, because how are we going to know if we achieve this? So evaluation is built into the program, to the curriculum, to the teaching from the very beginning. And then you begin to look at, okay, what do we need, what do they need to know in order to achieve this goal? And so you begin to develop your objectives. Then we look at learning activities. So many times people do it, oh, we got these great learning activities, now how are we going to fit them into a curriculum? And they lack this long-term objective that we're working towards, this long-term goal. They many times don't think about evaluation until they're halfway through the program or it's finished, and they think, oh, how are we going to evaluate that? Well, with the logic model, you think about that from the very beginning, because you need to know whether or not you've reached your outcome. I'm going to fly through the next part as I look at the time, because I know you want to allow time for questions. I've been a successful grant writer. I'm going to skip showing you our Spin Club website. We can look at that later if people are interested. These are the resources that we have developed in terms of promoting, recruiting, training, supporting our Spin Club program and our volunteers. And we did that through grant money from Monsanto. We also have used grant money for program development with our 4-H Health Jam program. We've been able to expand that tremendously throughout the state as a part of our grant program, so more young people are learning about physical activity, healthy living, and also health professions. We've reached a lot of new youth and also teens through our 4-H Food Smart Families grant, which is sponsored by ConAgra, the Spin Club resources by Monsanto, and then 4-H Health Jam is through Walmart. That's through the Walmart Foundation and then also through National 4-H Council. Each one of those have had an evaluation component, whether that's the curriculum, the program model, or the volunteer model, and many of these have been adopted for national adoption and replication. And then the last thing that I want to share with you is I bring my experience to the program. I have worked in urban areas, in the inner city, with youth of all races and ethnicity from all levels of poverty. I've also worked in smaller cities and in small towns, so I have a perspective of a broad approach to demographics. In 4-H, I have done everything. I have done all the different types of clubs, camps, state events, local events. I've trained counselors. I've led 4-H camps. I've done fairs locally and at the state. So there's not much in 4-H that I haven't done. So I bring that perspective. So when we're doing curriculum development, it is with that perspective that's making it helpful for our staff. But most of all, I believe that in order to be relevant for today's youth, that we need to meet the needs of all youth, and we must become an organization that is and, not only. And I mean, we have farm kids and we have inner city youth. We have kids that love the fair, and we have kids that have never been to the fair and they don't want to go to the fair. We have kids that are really passionate about ag science, and we have kids that are really passionate about programming robotics, or robots. We have kids that have tremendous family and parental support, and then we have kids that are troubled and don't have any input or support from their families. We have to be both of those things. We have to expand our program to be both, so that 4-H becomes for all youth, not just for some youth. So that wraps up my presentation, and I think I'm ready for questions. Justin, I went a few minutes over.
No problem. We've got about 10 minutes before Dr. Weese's next appointment. So if you have a question, feel free to ask that now. I would ask that you speak up a little bit. We are filming this for the deans and administrators that could not be here today. So I may repeat the question if you're not loud enough, but feel free to go ahead and ask if you'd like to get a response.
Madonna, tell us a little bit about your teaching at the university level in terms of the class that you teach, and some of the things that you do in that class, methodologies you use, things of that type.
The class that I taught is an upper level ag course in ag ed on youth development, and it's preparing the students for work in youth development, or some of them were business majors who were taking the youth development course because that is a passion that they have and they want to use it for their volunteer time or their community service time. And with that program, again, my approach to that was to make sure that we were grounding them in the real world application of what they were learning. And so as we began to do that, I incorporated those hands-on learning experiences to teach them about, for example, the first night we did a session on perspectives, because people bring a multitude of perspectives to the work of youth development. So I took apart a picture book. It told the stories entirely through pictures, and it was for very young people, but it also had appeal to adults because it was a beautiful story, beautiful artwork. And I handed out those different pieces around the room and then challenged them to put the picture in its storyline without sharing their picture with other people in the class. And so what they had to do was go up to each person in the class and share their perspective of the story, what they were seeing, what key elements that there were in the picture that they saw. And then they quickly began to gather into small groups until they were finally able to put together the whole storyline. And then as we went around the circle, then they each told their perspective of the story from the beginning to what they thought was the end. And I said, is this the end of the story or is it the beginning of the story? And they were all convinced that they had the right beginning and the right end. And actually it was reversed. And so the point of that is that we all have different perspectives. We may jump in at a different point in a learning process with what our perspectives are, but in the end, we come together, and we may have a different beginning and a different end depending upon where we start. So those type of learning activities where we're talking about perspectives, but it's being explored in a very experiential way, in a very collaborative way, and very interactive way, because these are young people that enjoy engaging with other people in learning. We also used some real world learning experiences for them where they were doing program evaluations and going out and observing in a program using a youth quality program assessment tool and reporting back on that. We took some stories, headlines about young people that were having problems and have them assess what they felt the situation was, why the kids were in that situation, what they would advocate as a youth development professional for that person. So again, it was always making those connections back to those real world experiences, which to me is one of the critical elements of an educator, is helping them make those connections. Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Any follow-up?
I do.
Yes.
Building upon Dr. Clark's question, how would you structure an online graduate course?
I have not done an online graduate course, but I feel that the challenge would be to apply that same engagement of learning online and provide them opportunities to contribute to a course-wide discussion and interactions. I think young people in college are very attuned to doing that through discussion boards and blogs and other types of online communities. I think they can share their work through social media. So, for example, if they post a project to a closed online social media group, they could post their work to get peer review on that.